This is my extended view on the Pimax Crystal Super. In this video, I'm going to directly compare it to the Crystal Lite. I've come up with this list of features that I think you can evaluate a VR headset or ecosystem. And the Crystal Super features this unique ability for swappable optical engines. And the optical engine you have will change these features. Pimax has supplied me with everything you see here in the box, but I do not own any of this. And my unit includes, I guess, the default or the most basic level optical engine. If my math is right, it has 80% more pixels than a Crystal Lite, which means you're going to need a beefy system to run this headset. Think 5090, 4090, maybe a 5080. I don't have benchmarks in this video, but I do want to look at the impact of dynamic foveated rendering through eye tracking, but that's later. If you prefer the condensed version of this comparison, check out the video here. This is like my 5th attempt at trying to do this over the last couple days here. On the left, we have the Pimax Crystal Lite. Front and center, this is the Pimax Crystal Super. And then here on the right is just my video editing software to run everything. So this is the Super. And oh my God, menu music, no. Actually, you know what? I might as well show you the settings that are going on here. So here we can see the settings, 4K, MSA 4 times. I'm running at native resolution 100%. So 8 times is ridiculous. I have FXAA on, but everything else is pretty much max. What is this? Shadow blur, whatever. We're not gonna be driving per se. What I wanna do is do a direct A-B comparison with the same test scenario. That's what we want to do here. So I'm doing Sebring, Aston Martin. It's going to be a practice session, and I'm even changing the weather so that we have clear skies. So the lighting should be identical. So the Pimax Crystal Lite is running off of a Intel 13700K with an RTX 5080 from MSI. It's a Shadow 3X. Pimax Crystal Super is running with that 5090, and it is on the 9800X 3D. So 2 completely different computers, and then this is another third computer. So what we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna put the headset on. Reminder, all VR footage shown here is from the desktop window capture, not in the headset. If you're curious, right now I'm at 56 frames per second sitting in the pit lane. I am running 100% resolution from the Pimax Play software. So this is the full native resolution for the headset, and it is grueling. We're in the shadows, it's dark in here, and I'm just kind of looking around to size this up to see if I can compare it to the Crystal Lite. Looking at the dash, I can make out the numbers fine. Those are perfectly clear. However, what's written beneath them, like speed, lap count, things like that, oil temp, that is still pretty tough to read. I would say not legible. I can decipher it, but I can't read it. If we look out the window, there's like a warning sign there. I can't read anything about that warning sign. And then another thing that I've noticed is like looking down here at the buttons, aux A, aux B, fuel, OR, like that's pretty clear here with the Crystal Super. And we've got a bit of a blue glow coming from the LED at the top here. So now what I'm gonna do is switch, oh, I hit the microphone. That is not gonna be the first time that happens. So now I'm gonna switch over to the Pimax Crystal Lite. Which has conveniently put itself to sleep, but that shouldn't matter. Don't fall. I have to switch. All right, so I have to switch USB inputs so that now I have wheel control and everything in here, and I can recenter the headset. By the way, my head strap doesn't quite fit, and I'm going to get a replacement. This headset is darker by default at these graphic quality settings. Again, I'm running default right now. I'm just trying to get, an apples to apples comparison. Yeah, it just feels cooler, like in color temperature. Up here, I'm noticing like the LED, that's actually a bit more blurry in the roof. Yeah, okay, back to the dash. Again, numbers are clear. I cannot read what's beneath the numbers any better than what I could in the Crystal Super. Looking down here at the buttons inside the car. Again, we can't interact with them, but they are there. Either they're blurrier or it's just darker. It's just generally darker. So I'm gonna pull forward. Okay, so now we're just sitting here in the pit lane, looking straight ahead. Hasn't really helped. I mean, I can see the lighting here kind of off of my shoulder into the cabin a little bit. We can see lighting down there on the electronic systems. Still quite dark in the cabin. All right, so then I'm gonna almost hit the microphone again. All right, back in the car. Oh yeah, without a doubt, this is brighter. Oh yeah, without a doubt, this is brighter. So now we're gonna pull around. Looks like my alignment's slightly off. Yeah, so by default, I think this is a bit more green, whereas a bit more earth tone, whereas the Pimax Crystal Light is bluer, so there is a different color going on here. I find there's greater clarity looking up at this, like, I don't know what kind of lighting effect is happening in the roof, this occlusion or some kind of lighting thing going on. Yeah, like even looking down here at the carbon fiber weave, this is just, it's all lighter. It's all just brighter, more detailed, I would say, compared to the Crystal Light. So with the Crystal Super, I'm looking ahead and there's less glistening around the trucks. They do look a bit more focused. I'm gonna drive all the way down to the start-finish straight and we'll just do a comparison there. It's a giant seagull. Okay. The carbon fiber shroud that has the controls in there, or the dash, it's got a bit of a twinkle. I'll keep an eye out for that when I look at it through the Crystal Light. So I'm just watching the lighting shift in the cabin. Yeah, it looks quite organic. Very, very good looking. And then what I'll do, I'll come up here. I'm just gonna stop right here. So I can't see the Rolex side. All right, Cadillac Racing all the way down in front of us. I can make out all the letters pretty well. I mean, the G at the end, I can't really discern a difference between the G and the C of Cadillac. I do find with the Super that it is a bit more sensitive to the sweet spot. Looking down at the trucks, the RVs and the pedestrians here, bystanders. And then if we look down at the champions here, looking at the dates like 2009, 2008, 2007, 2006, 2004, 2004. Did I already say that? 2003. So 2003 is when I can't really distinguish between 2003, like I can decipher it, but I can't really distinguish. And then 2002, I cannot tell the difference. So that's the clarity we're getting from the Pimax Crystal Super. So now I'll switch back over to the Crystal Light and we'll do the same process. You know, it's not that different. It is not that different. It's darker in here. It's a cooler tone. Yeah, there's that big seagull. Oh God, I forgot to turn. And so what I was noticing with the we got the Crystal Light on now, and what I was noticing with the Super is that there was just more brightness and twinkling happening with the kind of matte, whatever Alcantara finish that's going on top of the dash here. So it's much more muted in this headset. I'm gonna go forward. So this should be about the same spot. It looks like it is the same spot. And I'm gonna compare quality again. So again, we got Cadillac Racing. So this is worse. Looking at Cadillac Racing, for example, the C's are very difficult to distinguish. Like those could be O's with the Pimax Crystal Light. So I think there's some clarity lost there. Yeah, there's just more shimmering on that. The way that they are distorting because of the lower pixel quality or the lower pixel density. And then, yeah, like I have no shot making out the G. It's just no way to make that out. Looking at the guy waving the flag down there, I guess there's two of them. Yeah, that was a bit more clear. He was a bit more stark standing out on that platform than the rest of these guys. And I would say the same thing looking down at these. The bystanders do not stand out as well as they did. I would say all of the objects, they just don't quite pop out the same way. It's hard to describe, but it looks more like a scene that is a bit more smeared, I guess. Like, it's not as stark. There's something about the Crystal Super where they all look like cutouts. It all look like crisp individual items. All right, so we look at the years going down: 2007, 2006, 2005, 2004. I would say 2003. That is not as clear. Yeah, and then 2002, I can't really make it out. 2001. Yeah, so again, I definitely think you can see a clarity difference between this. One thing, this sounds bizarre. So up there, like, I don't know what I call it, the control tower. Look at that chain link or that metal railing there. I wonder if that's a higher quality if we switch back to the Super. Oh, Super's back on. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, so I can see the railing coming up. Yeah, this is definitely more clear, without a doubt. There are extra accessories that come with this, including the DMAS headphones, which I do not have installed. There's also a strap that goes on top. But I just want to answer the biggest question of all, which is there a clarity difference between these headsets? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. So let me see. I'm going to drive a little bit. Let's find something interesting to look at. All right, so we're looking down at the meter markers. So let's go all the way down. I'll put it like right in front. 400's right outside the mirror. Okay, 400 is right out here. Maybe there's a better turn to do this, although this is a pretty good turn. So we have the 400 meter marker right here to our left. The grass, looking down at the next meter marker, 300, 200. I would say 100. I can't really distinguish that very well. Granted, it's a lot of white and a small amount of black, so that's not much of a distinction there. So I cannot decipher that. The Mobile 1 is obviously quite clear. I have a couple guys waving flags. Okay, so we'll use that. And then I also stopped here to get a better understanding of the dash. The dash is just more brownish, or it's shimmering, I guess. It's got a nice texture on it. It's got a bit, yeah, it's a weird texture for sure. So it's definitely got a shimmer to it, which I think is just a graphical effect, considering the resolution of the headset. Looking down at the buttons, we can see shadows are coming over the buttons down here and around the dash. Like, this is all really nice lighting from LMU, I have to say. Like, look how the shadows kind of go over that, but you'd think it looks like it's not happening with the what is that, fire extinguisher? It's all black. Like, that should be lit up like the other components here, but they don't have that texture there. But yeah, seeing the shadows of the roll cage project onto the car itself, it's very pretty. All right, so I'm going to pull up to the same spot. Oh, hit the microphone again. That's okay. Yeah. So we've got the crystal light. Let's go and drive up to the same thing. So far, I haven't had a disconnect yet, which is actually impressive, because I've been kind of leaving them idling, and sometimes they don't like that. This is a lot louder. Yeah, I think I was right about here. Yeah, I think this is about the same. Yeah, where's that tent? Oh, the objects are different? So I had the 400 is just right here to my left. This is about the same. Okay, comparing resolution. Yeah, the dash, it's totally different. It still has the shimmering of this texture that's being presented, but because this headset is just darker, it's just not quite, it doesn't have as much pop to it. Looking at the meter markers, 400 is obviously perfectly clear. 300 is great. 200 starts to get a little blurry. And 100, I can't even focus on it. I think 100, yeah, I can't make out 0 or 1. I can imagine there being a 100, but I can't actually make it out. 400 out the window. I'm just gonna switch back real quick to make sure I'm not farther ahead with, hit the microphone again. Oh God. Hello. Oh God. We're lost. What do you see? Yeah. I think the headset crashed. I didn't notice it at the time, but the bonk of the headset into the microphone seems to have caused the loss of tracking. which makes me wonder, is this headset more sensitive to physical movement and how you handle it? And I think longer term testing will reveal that if it's an issue. Okay, so for this session, we're at the 24 Hours of Le Mans circuit. Put on the Crystal Super first. All right, inside Cadillac Hypercar. Man, I haven't been in one of these in a while. I forgot how claustrophobic it is. Oh, God. All right, everything on the steering wheel is pretty clear. However, actually looking at the top of the screen, dry 60, 6150, the smaller font is hard to read. Oil temp. Like I would say back here, the numbers are clear, but the fact that it says energy, I just find it really hard for my eyes to focus on. Obviously, we've got some green LED that's making everything very green in here. I mean, that's an interesting example. So here I am trying to look down at the ECU toggle and the engine function thing. And so this is where people might have a disagreement with the clarity of the Pimax. Looking at that, if I look dead straight, like the front of my face, directly at that toggle switch, it's very clear. But when you turn like this, and now I'm looking through the side, so predominantly the side of my left eye, trying to focus in on that, you're shifting the angle of which you're focusing. So if I close my left eye, I'm at the extreme part of the lens of my right eye. And that's not going to be clear. That's not the sweet spot. The sweet spot's here. So when I do this, it gets more blurry. And I think a lot of people think that they expect edge-to-edge clarity with a Pimax crystal, but the lens type does not permit that. So looking at the texture of the carbon fiber, I can see scratches up here. I can see how like that the piston of the release there is kind of worn down, like what it had an anodized finish. So as I drive forward, let's go into first. Oh, why does the force feedback feel like that? All right, so now we're just kind of straightened up on the pit lane. We can see stars out there. I think, is that, is there, I'm leaning my head outside. Yeah, okay, so we're looking forward now. Rolex is not distinguishable. I know it says Rolex. Everyone's seen that. That is not, I cannot actually make that out. Am I rolling backwards? I am. In first gear? I guess it's got an I have automatic clutch on. Weird. Rolling backwards. Okay. Foot's on the brake. Okay. Just for giggles, let's see how far back it drifts. All right. So now we're going to switch over. Oh, yeah. Again, much darker in here. Much, 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 much darker in here. Not at a disadvantage to the clarity. Oh, some tracking issues. Again, I'm running the Lighthouse with the crystal light, whereas I'm using the inside-out tracking with the Pimax Crystal Super. Like it's so dark, I can't really it's hard to make out confirming ECU just because it's so dark in here. Oh God. Go down and then I'll just, all right. Again, Rolex, not distinguishable. Can I see stars? I can see one star. Interesting. Yeah. I can only see one star, where I saw more stars with the other headset. So I guess that's a illustration of the clarity and the brightness difference. All right, I'll put this one back on. Oh, yeah. Wow. It's so much brighter in here. It's so much brighter in here. This feels, yeah, and I can see way more stars. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so this confirms this headset is tuned brighter. I don't know if it's a function of just the panels themselves, but without a doubt, this confirms that. I think what I'm gonna do, oh yeah, I can see the freaking constellations. Oh, wow, okay. So now I'm curious. I'm wondering if this headset's just tuned differently. If the screens within the Pimax Crystal Light are able to attain this level of brightness. Because the Super, I'm getting more clarity. I'm getting more I'm able to distinguish between objects a bit more clearly. And I'm wondering if it's just a matter of the graphical tuning. All right, so to try and match the brightness and color differences found on the Crystal Super, what I've done is I've gone into the settings here for Pimax Play and the Crystal Light. Brightness is already 100. So I went under Games and I've adjusted the contrast and brightness 3:2 right here as an attempt to try and see if I can get... I want to see the constellations. I want to see the stars at Le Mans like I could with the Crystal Super. I don't know if this is going to work. All right, we're back inside. Start driving. I think this does look more similar to what we had with the Crystal Super. So I've got the Crystal Light on now. Let's kind of pull out here and pull up to where I was before. And I can kind of see the faintest little bits of stars in the headset. Okay, so I think this is closer of an experience to what we had going on with the Crystal Super. Yeah, I can definitely see more stars than I could before. All right, so what if I switch back to the Crystal Super now? It looks like I've left this thing inactive for too long. And if you do that, it does not like it. All right, we're back in. Start driving. Where am I? I'm gonna go right about here again. Yeah, it's just better. These panels are better at night. Just the way the night looks and the actual black sky, the way the stars are kind of popping out a little bit, it just seems better. So let's drive down. Let's find another spot to look at. So I'm just kind of looking at how the lighting is changing across the circuit, how the distinction of the trees between those that are lit and those that are not lit. Again, the stars outside, and there goes that helicopter. So there's a helicopter on patrol down that way. So if we go, so now let's go to the Crystal Light and see if we can see what we see the Crystal Super. Okay, have I rolled? Yes, I have. Oh, that's right. I don't have the controls plugged in. That is way louder. Oh, I can see the helicopter. Okay. The sky, the dark night sky is not as black. It's more gray. And the stars are very subtle twinkling. A very subtle perspective of them. Yeah, and just looking at how the colors go across, the gray and the shadows go across the circuit that is unlit, it's just a bit more washed out in this. So and that would be expected because I've increased the contrast, I've increased the brightness. So I just tried to get it to look more similar to the Crystal Super and the Pimax Crystal Light. There goes the helicopter. The Pimax Crystal Light, it's not able to have that same dynamic range. It would seem to me, even with that quick adjustment. All right, so for the final test here, we are at 7:45 Monza. An interesting lighting situation. Sun is setting, long shadows, dark, and parts bright in other parts. I have dropped the graphics quality so that we can get 90 FPS from for both headsets. Here I am sitting in the pit lane inside my Ferrari 488, and I've now reset the Crystal Light to its default settings, and I've changed the Crystal Super, which is what I'm wearing, and I dropped the contrast by 2 just to get a little bit more darkness and brightness balance out of it. So you can see the change in quality here, like those buttons and whatever are now quite blurry. The font here for ABS, reverse, that kind of stuff. We've lost some clarity there, but the dash still looks very clear. Okay, so we're sitting here in the pit lane. We can see the smudges and dirtiness on the window. We can see kind of like a sparkling effect happening with the styrofoam. That's interesting. Kind of a cool dynamic there. I can see like the smudginess or the clear coat that's on the carbon fiber, how it's been worn through Like, that's pretty cool to see. And I don't know if that they're trying to do an Alcantara top or if that's another type of suede or some other kind of material on the dash. So that's what it looks like in here. So now let's, all right, had to make a couple of adjustments there, got rid of the HUD and stuff. Yeah, so back in the car. This time we're wearing the crystal light. Again, this kind of dramatic lighting that's going on. And there's just less depth. There's less range to the darks. You know, things are just black. It's quite dramatic, I guess, but it looks kind of saturated. I thought Assetto Corsa Competizione also had this kind of look, just by its default colors, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm still seeing the same effects, such as the styrofoam with how it's sparkling and such, but there's just less range of black here. It's all like the same type of black, is what I'm noticing. I'm just gonna double check here. That is in fact what I'm seeing. Yeah. I mean, this headset's just brighter. Even with doing all of that, it's just plain brighter. This looks more normal. Now, some of the lighting in here is abnormal because I've decreased the quality. Like, it shouldn't be that bright down in the footwell. Yeah, I would just say the Crystal Super is just plain brighter, in a good way. We're back in. So all I'm gonna do is gonna drive out the pit lane. So I'm not gonna go very far. I'm actually just gonna go down. Let's just go down to here. Okay. Seeing how the car likes to roll backwards. Yeah, I just want to get another understanding for clarity. Again, so I'm kind of seeing the outline of the trees against the light ground, or sorry, the light sky, some clouds back there. Yeah. Looking at the sky. You know, this is a hard test. Like, looking at a blue... Can I just poke my head out of this? Oh! Yeah, I can. Okay, so looking at the blue sky, that's always going to be a challenge for any screen, like monitor, TV, is when you have, like, a uniform color, and, like, it's going to show off the difficulty that screen might have, and it's how it's doing the edge lighting, or backlighting, or dimming functions, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so now let's drive down there in the Super. Is there a car coming by? Not for a minute. All right, sticking my head out here. Am I leaning like right into the camera? I bet it's just freaking the camera out. So if we look up, I think this is there. If there's one blemish with this QLED panel, and it seems like it doesn't do that uniform color as well. So when I'm looking at the sky and I shift my head left, right, I'm seeing like an inconsistency in a panel, almost like there's, you know, like, because there's no screen door effect with these headsets. Like, the pixel count is so high, like there is no screen door effect. But you could see inconsistencies in that uniform color presentation. And I don't know how to describe it. Okay, so let's go driving. This will be a good example down here. So if I go down here, here's the Michelin. Isn't there tarmac here? Okay, so we'll stop right here. So all I'm going to do, I'm looking down at the Michelin Man, and I'm just going to move my head right to left. And so I'm going to see, like, right now, I can make out the rings in his arms. So I'm looking at the one in the yellow background. And as I turn my head, right here, inside the headset, they start to blur. And then by the time I get to here, I cannot make out the rings at all. It's just amazing how much darker this headset is. It really is. We don't have the same range in the darks. When it becomes dark, it's like, oh, we're dark now. I feel like the left to right tracking, or not tracking, but the left to right transition, whether it's the sweet spot or it's just the way the screen itself is refreshing, or the motion blur, I don't know what it is. It's a bit better in this headset. Where was I? I was at the edge. Oh yeah. So looking straight ahead. Go for the pass. Oh. I can see the rings of the Michelin Man. I'm turning. They're blurry now. And I guess they're blurry here. So it's more, definitely like very blurry right here. And I can't see it in my... Now I can't see it in my left eye. But for some reason, it's not as bad. So I wonder if the clarity edge to edge is a little better in the Pimax Crystal Light. But again, like looking at the objects, I just don't feel the same way about them. Like seeing how the trees stand out, how the trees stand out. There's just it's just not as sharp. It's just not. There's something about. I'm just stumbling to find the words. What if I put on this one? Yeah, like the clarity, it's more clear. It is more clear. Wow. I feel like the lighting is more natural in the cockpit right now. It's not like this saturated dark, even though I have adjusted the contrast. So, well, that's weird. Why is it kind of like blue in here? Purple. All right, so just as we start a hot lap here, well, not that hot lap, my tires are pretty cold, but some of my thoughts about the Crystal Super with all of this quality image panel testing that I've done here. I would say the panels back to back, I would pick these every time over a Crystal Light. I do think they're an improvement. The colors are just more interesting, more vibrant. It has a broader range in presenting the blacks and the grays. I find that its contrast is more interesting. Like I rambled on about those stars, but hey, being able to see stars and they don't even exist in the other one, that's pretty interesting. And then when I try to increase the brightness and the contrast to see if I can, get them to pop out a bit more, I ended up just washing out the Crystal Light. So it's not, you're unable, you literally can't see certain things with the Crystal Light that you can see with this headset. So the only thing I've noticed so far as a compromise with this panel, this QLED panel, is that, oh, don't miss the apex, is that, it's always fun to go through there. Where was I? Right, with this panel, the only thing that I've noticed is that it doesn't have the same color uniformity going across the panel. Maybe even color is wrong. It could be a local dimming thing. This headset's supposed to have local dimming 2.0. I don't know what that means, but that's what I read in the sales material. And so maybe, I think that should be software based, right? So maybe there could be an update to the software that improves that. I don't know. But I did notice that the Crystal Light, when looking at a pale blue sky, I was able to just see the colors uniformly go by as I turn my head left, right. Whereas this headset, the Crystal Super, I was noticing that there was just a bit of a blemish to it. On monitors, you'd call this the gray uniformity, and it's a way to evaluate the evenness of colors displayed across a screen. It requires some fancy cameras to actually capture the image and then some math to compute what the ratio is. Here's an example of a Samsung Odyssey monitor. No relation. Depending on the quality of screen you're using right now, you should be able to spot an unevenness of this white background or gray background. And this Samsung monitor has a retail price over $2,000 USD. So it's an engineering compromise to have a super wide, super high refresh rate monitor. But with VR headsets, it's more commonly called the Japanese word Mura. But I think an even better word for it is the dirty screen effect, DSE. Because to me, that's what it looks like. As someone who drives open cockpit cars, and I have a button bound for tear-off visor, it's like there's a bit of dirtiness on my brand new tear-off. It's when the sky is all one kind of gradient of color. That's when you notice it. In LMU, the windscreen is actually quite dirty, so you can't normally see it through the cockpit, in contrast to iRacing, which is a bit cleaner of a sim. Here's a replay of a league race that I did with iRacing, and we're approaching this insane back straight on Aragon. And there isn't a cloud in the sky. And it's a situation like this where the DSE can be an issue. And I feel like this is an engineering compromise. With a high resolution headset, we don't get that screen door effect anymore, which plagued the early first few generations of VR headsets. I don't have cameras or tools to actually measure the effect inside the headset, but the Pimax Crystal Light is better. And that's surprising because the Super features more local dimming zones, over 1,000 per eye. So I brought up this observation with Pimax, and they told me that software optimizations are coming for the Super to improve the situation. So now you have the backstory of how I've come up with these opinions and how I've compared the headsets. So let's conclude. On the left-hand side, we'll have the Crystal Super, and on the right, the Crystal Light. And as a reminder, I'm using the Super base model, which is the QLED with 50 ppd. So I'm going to take this big list of features and divvy them up. First of all, what's the same between the units? The stock audio is the same between the units, and they can both take the DMAS accessory. The controllers are identical, but I don't even use them. The software suggests that both can handle motion platform usage, and the pass-through is equally bad with both. Considering I could see the strobing of the lighthouse through the Pimax Crystal Super's pass-through, it has now made me wonder, did that also affect the tracking of the inside-out cameras on the Super? I don't know, but if you would like a warranty extension, they both have that. Oh, and as far as I know, the mods, like the either third-party accessories or 3D printed stuff, I don't know if there's a difference between them, so I'll just leave it here. And of course, both headsets are wired. So next up are the aspects that I think the Super has an advantage over the Crystal Light. Being able to upgrade the optical engine as an accessory is a huge advantage for the Super. Even with the base model screen, I thought it had better blacks, it was brighter, it had a clearer, higher resolution, the colors popped a bit more. And the field of view was better too, it was wider. I found that I didn't have to turn my head as much to check the mirrors or blind spots and look out the windows. And there's even an ultra-wide variant of the optical engine for the Super. I thought the Crystal Super also had an advantage with the microphone. The ergonomics are slightly improved because it's lighter and the head strap system is a bit more refined. And we do have more software options, especially because we have eye tracking. Now, I didn't cover that in this video, but I will look at dynamic foveated rendering separately. The results probably change sim to sim. The build materials are very similar between the two headsets, but I thought the Super was slightly better. Speaking of slight differences, let's talk about the Pimax Crystal Light. When I did the Michelin Man test, I found the edge-to-edge clarity to be slightly better. But neither headset has the edge-to-edge clarity that a Quest 3 has on offer, for example. Shaking my head left-right vigorously suggested that the Crystal Light had a clarity advantage with motion. And it makes sense that its QLED panel is a bit more snappy because it can also do 120 Hertz, whereas the Super does 90. There is a lab or beta mode that can be activated to try and squeeze a little bit more out of these features, but I haven't tested that. Another thing that's important to note is that I didn't notice a clarity advantage with motion or edge-to-edge when I was just using the Crystal Light. I had to go in the same car at the same track at the same time and compare them back to spot these differences. As of Pimax Play version 141, the Crystal Light had an advantage with the dirty screen effect. The color uniformity was just more consistent across its screen compared to the Super, but maybe a software update is inbound and we'll see that improve. You can also perform lighthouse tracking with the Crystal Light. The faceplate is available. I bought one. I think it is superior to the inside-out tracking, and you can see my experience with it back here in this video. I have not seen an ETA for the faceplate for the Crystal Super. I don't think it's a must-have, but if you are sensitive to that, you would benefit from having lighthouses. The other big benefit for the Crystal Light is the price. However, Pimax is holding the same price for 3 variants of the Super. This includes the version that I was testing for this video, as well as the ultra-wide version that has higher horizontal field of view, but Pimax does round these numbers up, and then a third variant that has higher pixel density, but then slightly smaller field of view. And for this month, so July 2025, they will also include the $100 DMAS headphone accessory, and I look forward to testing that one out. And there are a couple discount options for OG owners of the original Crystal and the Crystal Light. If you decide to go with either headset, you can use the code BENCHMARK and get a 3% discount. They always seem to be running some kind of promotion, but if you use my code, it also helps me financially. This video contained a lot of subjective opinion, but I thought I did my best to showcase that I'm giving you what I honestly think. And if you feel like the Crystal Light is a better fit for what you want out of a VR experience, check out this Level Up program where you can basically show proof of purchase of a previous headset and you get a discount on a Crystal Light, which is pretty sweet. And if you use the YouTuber code BenchmarkGift, you can get one of 3 accessories for free. I know recently there have been some crappy meta updates, so there's some disgruntled Quest 3 users out there frustrated with the link cable experience. So I think I'm gonna do this same kind of video process and evaluate the Pimax Crystal Light versus the Quest 3. Hopefully it'll be less clumsy and I won't smack the microphone. And I think I'll wrap up my longest video to date now. But if you would like some personal help with hardware selections and computer upgrades, VR, just send me an email.